Okay, we're going to do a quick scene. Well, maybe not a quick scene, but a quicker version of my previously stamped scene, which is the Blossoms and Bridge scene. And we're going to do it on a quarter-size piece of paper. And doing that scene was... It was in reference to some source material, an inspiration piece. But in this one, I'm just going to kind of try to capture some of the spirit of it, or the gist of it, but I'll do it in kind of more of a free-form way. Alright, so I just stamped out this image right here, and I've wiped off the bottom portion of it because I'm going to create kind of a more of a foggy type of thing. And plus, if I put anything in the foreground down here, with this being lighter, I'll be able to stamp images over the top of that and have them more defined. If this is really dark down here in terms of the shape, it'll interfere a little bit with the silhouette of that foreground imagery, okay? So that's one of the reasons why I do that. It'll also add a little bit of atmosphere to the piece. So in my Stampscapes University video, I talk about stamping partials and also manipulating lighting by the use of varied impression values. So instead of just stamping something on black, we can wipe off a little bit of it, and we can make certain areas lighter, and that will represent light, okay? So the drier the image is in certain areas, the lighter it will seem, and it'll seem like light is hitting those areas, okay? So if it's fog or something like that, or some lighting on top of some of my trees, I can blot them off like so, and hopefully it will read as such, you know, lighting. Alright, so it's just an easy tweak, you know, to do something like that. Okay, so I've kind of created this little bit of a passageway right there. You stamp it at different heights like that. That one looks farther off in the distance, even though these two images are exactly the same, right? Higher up in the composition, farther back, lower, closer to us, okay? Okay, now... naturally, being that we have a smaller format here, we won't be able to do quite as much in terms of imagery, which won't necessarily be a bad thing. There was a lot of impressions made on that last one, which is really fun, but if we want to do something, you know, faster, then we have to have less imagery in here. Okay, so I used the maple pear in that last video, and I'll do that again here so we can get the kind of those pink blossoms. The tree cluster works really good too because we have that tree sandwiched in between, the deciduous tree sandwiched in between evergreens. Okay, so I'm going to mask off the top of this rocky waterside right here. I won't have room for the soft hill up top, though. That's just going to be too much imagery. I could get it in there if I went vertical with this, but we're going to do it horizontal so I can get a little bit more space in there, okay? So you see that tree in there? I just kind of masked off this bottom portion, masked up right there. And let's go for some of these trees. Let's go for a little bit of a variation in the tree tops. Or just, I don't know, in the body of the tree, just to get a little bit of green in there. Okay? And then we'll mask off our maple pear. This composition should come together fairly fast. And it naturally does when you're working on, you know, such a small format, which is the standard card size. Okay, like so. Okay, getting fairly dense in here. It's almost, I wonder about, is it too dense with the imagery? I still need room for that bridge back in there. Okay. So you just keep building and building. Just a paper towel mask, and we'll have that bridge kind of peekabooing right back in there, or a peekaboo view of it. Okay, so we'll come in like that, and let's see here. But like so, under mask when you're masking, so that you don't get that halo effect, where you get this kind of little white space or blank space in between your imagery. It's stamped, and it is okay if some of this imagery gets into these other ones. The way I've designed these stamps, it's for blending purposes, so I try to avoid line work whenever possible. There are some lines on this bridge here, but I've tapered it enough to where it just blends right in with those surrounding images, and it's not as if it looks like the bridge is in the tree or something like that. Okay, so easy stuff in terms of the compositional elements within the scene. It's just that, there's a significant amount of depth within there with the additional layering, but what do? That took care of all of our masks, our masking needs. Just one little piece of paper towel, and we can keep using it too. Okay. All right, so in the other one, I got that waterfall in here. There's not a whole lot of space in there. It's really cramped. But we'll try to get that in there. Okay, so I'm going to color up this section of this waterfall right in here. I'm going to do this one lighter though, okay? So let me stamp it out once right here. And hopefully we get just a nice light version, impression. Okay, now I did that little demonstration on under masking. So I just keep my masks. You can reuse them all the time like that. Okay, post-it note. But in the other types of forms within here, I need a second mask here. The softer areas, we're going to mask it off like so. Okay. Okay. It's on practicing piano in the background. I don't know if it's getting picked up on this video or not. Okay, so let's see. Go about like so, and I'm going to stand up. I might get a little bit of haloing here just because there is so much paper towel and everything in there, but hopefully not too much. Oops. Did I stamp it? Oh my gosh, I didn't stamp anything in there. There was too much buildup right here. I need to make this thinner. Okay. That's interesting, huh? Or maybe I took off too much ink there. Oh, let's just go straight in there. Okay, so here, let me bring this down a little bit. Okay, more pressure right in there. It's just this little tiny hollow, so you really have to get pressure in that little section, because as thin as paper towels or post-it notes are, it's still a little bit thin. I think I took off too much ink the previous time. Yeah, there we go. See right there? It would have been a little bit better lighter, but I think I stamped off all my ink that first time. That was the problem. I didn't realize how much I took off. Okay, but that looks pretty good though. Alright, so see, it came into my tree a little bit, but that's better than having this big white space in between there. And see how that undermasking of the bridge works out. See how much space I have showing on that bridge right there from that mask? That way, it goes right up to that spot right there. See that? Okay, so anyways, this looks like a fun layout here. And it is fun. I especially like bringing everything together in the end. I have some foreground that I'll still use in here, but by and large, this is the composition right there. And let's approach this in a similar fashion to the previous one, okay? So I just laid down a foundation color using the antique linen distress ink. A light, warm tone here, okay? It's kind of a foundation color. Or it is a foundation, not kind of. It kind of establishes lighting too, in addition to just giving a nice slathering. I don't know of a better word for that, but that's kind of what we're doing here. We're establishing a nice thick coat of ink on the surface of our paper. We do establish a little bit of lighting though too. Watch my Stampscapes University on lighting video. And you'll know what I'm talking about with this kind of establishing foundation. We just do it with excuse me. I need to get a drink. I just had a bowl of cereal. Okay, but anyways, what I was talking about, if I can talk, is this kind of establishes a slathering of ink, okay? So it sets the foundation for additional inks to come, because they'll be able to glide on this ink, because as much as it absorbs and it evaporates in the air here, it's still a little wet to the touch. Okay, it's dry to the surface right here, but what happens is it starts filling up and saturating the pulp of the paper with moisture so that it's not quite as absorbent as it is when it's just dry, bare, bare paper. So here's the thing. Most people color to color, okay? But I'm doing two things. I'm coloring here. I'm establishing lighting too. Anything I keep white is going to be the kind of the lighter area of the scene. But what I'm also doing is I'm saturating the pulp of the paper. So I'm not just thinking surface here, okay? I'm thinking three-dimensionally here, okay? And that's what will serve you well, is if you see kind of the surface here in terms of 3 dimensions, not only in terms of scenic depth, but think about that in terms of your paper too. You're trying to kind of saturate your paper a little bit. So when you move into darker colors or your other colors, this is a light salvia blue. I almost can't see anything, but it's a good foundation color too. Okay, I can even put it on my rocks here, in terms of a cool grayish tinge, when overlapping antique linen, okay? Kind of takes on a different spirit of a different color. So that's what we do here. We just kind of build things up slowly like this, or incrementally is a better word. It can come together fairly quickly, but you do it incrementally like this, and you'll have a lot of control over it. I can put in my green grass up here. Okay? Well, you see the lighting kind of starting to be established here. It's just so much fun to add these colors in like this and to watch them develop slowly. This one's a pretty big jump in terms of value, light and dark, and intensity, dull to bright. This one's pretty dark, and it's pretty bright relative to, the colors that I've already laid down here. But it'll be easy to blend them in like this because the paper is fairly saturated, okay? I'm getting a little bit of pulling right here because this, these dry base inks, they dry fairly quickly, so if it ever feels like it's just too things are sticking too much, then just go back and add on like another layer of whatever your lightest colors were, or what was. It doesn't have to be antique linen, that's just a nice warm tone that I happen to have. And it's very, very light, so it's a really good tone to start off with. Actually, any of the Distress inks are pretty light and not too bright in value. I mean, intensity. So they're pretty good ones to start off with. And they're also, those inks are fairly thick. Memento inks are very thick as well, so they're excellent ones to do this with. But see my lighting right there? I'm kind of following my same lighting scheme. Okay, alright. Let's add some gray. I think I did add gray. This is a color that I don't use too often, but I used it in that last scene. I felt that it kind of gave the piece a little bit of an antiqued look, and that's kind of what I was going for. The inspiration piece, the source material that I was trying to copy, was it had kind of a nice aged look. It, you know, kind of something nicely established and whatnot. And this gray can provide a little bit of that. Kind of mellows some colors out somewhat. Okay, it's not a big change in hue. You can put some on the bridge as well. Okay. Kind of working like that. Color scheme. Do you see how that kind of blends to the eye? Actually, that would almost go like that. These two are about the same value right here in terms of light and dark. The blue is definitely much, much brighter, though. Okay, now, let's see what other colors I can use here. I mean, you can use anything you want, but let's go to some of this walnut stain, okay? Let's try some of this walnut stain on this rock here. And I'll put a little bit of this into the trees and grass as well. Those trees I'll be adding a lot of pink to, but I don't want it just straight pink. Sometimes it's a little bit too bright and distracting. Although they certainly stand out, you know, in terms of nature. But I also want them to harmonize with the surrounding area. That being said, should I go to the pink? Let's move into a darker blue here. Okay, this one's kind of more of a navy blue. Okay. I think this video is going to have a soundtrack to it. I can't... I have a feeling that's recording. That's my son playing the piano, practicing his piece that he's learning. Okay. Getting pretty established there in terms of that sky and water. Okay. Let's see. Okay, this is my brown. Let's moving into some green tinges. Peeled paint. How about that one? Okay. Go into my grassy area. Put a little bit on this rock too. Some did these rocky watersides with a lot of grass on them. I thought, hey, that works really good. I always saw them as kind of bare rock, but someone did a whole thing where they kind of had a whole section of it as green. I thought, oh, that does look great, you know. Why not? Alright, so there is that. It's kind of moving in that direction, isn't it? In terms of springtime, a little bit of a brighter kind of a brighter color scheme in some ways, a warmth to it. Alright, let me go back to this antique linen because it's really dry at this point in time. These trees right in here, okay? So, at any given time, you can always go back and just reestablish a little bit more of a kind of a foundation color. Even if it is going over other colors, it will be something that's not quite as apparent, in the end result, because it's going to be over the top of or underneath darker, brighter colors, okay? But it provides a nice foundation, and without it there, it would look different, okay? But it's not only that, it just makes it easier. Okay, so see this kind of going in with a kind of a light touch with my pink right here. These trees. It is a change of hue, so I'm a little bit careful about the rate at which I apply new colors, especially if it's change of hue. Okay. Now, one of the things that's really fun when you're talking about water types of scenes is giving a little bit of a reflection of the colors that are happening above, reflected in the water. It gives it something in common with it, doesn't it? Like that. I love doing just straight visuals of reflected in the water, things like sky imagery, moons, lightning, stars, that type of thing. I love reflecting things in my water that are happening in the above ground or actually in the sky. Okay, so see that right there? So they have all these colors happening above, and it's reflected in that flowing water. All right, that was Rosemary. Let's try this rose pink here. Rose pink's a little bit, slightly warmer tinge. Okay. See, I'm actually putting some of this on my rocks here. Just, I don't know, we can have some lighting kind of reflected in those areas. And I think that's all we need there. Let's see now. I'm just wondering if I should just go straight on into black now. It seems like I could build out these colors a little bit more before I move into some other tones. The darkest tone would be black. Here's a brown. I really love Marvy's brown. Just kind of working my shadow areas here a little bit. Kind of a nice earthy tinge. I can put some up in my bridge to add a little warmth to that form. Pens will be so much easier up there, but this kind of gives it a little bit of established tone. Okay, here's a dark brown. And put in a little bit of a shadow underneath my maple pear objects. Okay. And let's go into, I want a little bit of a brighter tone in here, so let's go with this right here. It's a really bright color in light green, the light green Marvy, so I'll kind of blot this out. I'm using it with my same applicator that I had brown on, so it won't be quite as extreme, but I just want a little bit of a brighter touch in here, and that's what Marvy inks can provide. I don't want everything super bright all the time. In fact, I like a lot of things duller to kind of contrast against the bright areas. It makes the brighter things brighter by contrast, and everything isn't quite so kind of hot in terms of the brightness scale. Okay, this is Caribbean blue. It's a little bit of a warmer blue. I like adding a lot of this into my pieces that have blue, just for a slight temperature change within that those spaces wherever it's used. Okay. All right. Coming around. I think we're ready for black in here. We're getting real close. Let me use my blue applicator. Alright, now this is where everything for me in the original scene really started coming together. It's like you work through all these colors and just getting black, back to black, which is the color that we started all of our imagery with. That's the thing that really brought things together. So it's the shadows and the highlighting that often brings things together even more than the scene, previous to that. So it's sometimes, in other words, it's the last two steps for me that really kind of unifies things together. So that being said, this is why I always say just keep working your pieces. This did not look, like something that I was expecting. The original scene I'm talking about. Most of the way through it, it was about bringing all these different types of color schemes together. We had green, we had blues, we had pinks. I mean, pink, you really have to kind of incorporate that into the piece. But, by the time you get to, kind of the last couple steps in whatever, if things aren't coming together, sometimes it's the last step for me. Not with all the pieces, a lot of the pieces they can stop at any given time and everything looks fine. I just like to tweak things a little bit darker in some areas, a little bit lighter in some areas, or brighter tones or whatever, But, it's one of those things where you could stop, in theory, 30% into it and the scene looks fine, but sometimes there are certain types of scenes that they're kind of more resolved kind of in the latter stages, of whatever those stages might be, whatever ones you get to. So always try to work it. I always tell people, don't toss scenes out or pieces, that you're working on. I mean, no one ever does this. One person did it one time. Or maybe there might have been two people, where I always say, send me your pieces, I want to see things that were kind of destined for the trash. And I'll show you the tweaks that you do to it, or the things that you further add to the piece to kind of bring it into kind of a finished resolution. Often times it's going a little bit darker. It's more ink usually in the coloring process. Sometimes other imagery can help, or if there's a really big problem, what you do is you add things that are closer to you and it pushes everything in the scene farther back visually. You don't even have to cover it up. You just put something else somewhere closer and everything moves back visually like that. That's what I mean too about kind of thinking in 3 dimensions, when it comes to these scenes. I think a lot of the types of stamping we do in cards and whatnot, the thought, we might have certain things that pop up, but I think by and large people are thinking in terms of 2 dimensions. I'm doing something in 2 dimensions right here, but I'm thinking in terms of 3 dimensions and trying to give that illusion of it. So, you make something darker over here and something brighter over there, lighter over there stands out. Have something closer here and everything in the scene looks, one step farther back. So we can always play those types of dynamics against one another. Okay, so anyway, as I'm babbling on right here, let's get into some additional coloring with some alcohol pens. Is easier getting into some of these areas. This is just a, fairly bright pink. It's kind of the same hue, but I can get into a much more targeted area with this. I can kind of hit the shadows and leave other areas with this untouched if I want to. I can get down in this background, trees, with some pink in there where it might have been harder to with, some sort of ink applicator, like the stylus tool or whatnot, These are just perfectly made for doing something like this. Okay, this one's a little bit duller pink. Kind of blend the darker one in a little bit. Okay. I love using these pens. See, you can do some streaks in your water if you want to, like this. You bring it up. When you go with something so light, you can kind of do whatever you want. Go like this. I can go like that. That doesn't look too good. But you can blend it right back out, right? It's the beauty of alcohol pens. Let's go on the bridge right here. See this bridge and these bricks right here? You can color these bricks a little bit of a different tone. Here's a little bit of green. Thing is to vary it. Don't color in everything the same. That's one of the things that people are kind of used to doing. A lot of times they're used to kind of giving the same treatment over the, a larger space, which you can do, but if you kind of vary it like this, it gives it a little bit more dimension. Okay. You can go in with here's a dark gray. Okay. So I can kind of put a little bit of shadow underneath that top part. I can make some of these rocks in the bridge a little bit darker, or maybe the bottom side of that. Here's this waterfall in the background. Want to make that water stand out a little bit more. You can kind of make the area around it a little bit darker, but leave some of the rocks a little bit light, like it's reflecting some of that light. Here's some dark gray. You can put a little bit of shading in these rocks like so. Where do you shade? Well, if you look at the design, there's this line in here that's a little bit darker. I can put it at the base of trees. They're darker underneath. Okay. Shadows underneath my rocks. Okay. If it stands out too much, what you do is you just take your blender pen or a lighter version of it and just go right back in there. A little bit too light right in there, right, with the waterfall? But that's not easily addressed with something like this. You could, but this is so much easier. Just go into it with a lighter, a narrower applicator. It's a little bit too dark, right? So here's a lighter blue right here. You just go in here and just kind of blend that out a little bit. Here, like so. Okay. All right. Let's see. I have my foreground to come and some little additional embellishments. This is my pink paint pen, Sharpie pen. If you have some pink gel pens, that could work too. These paint pens are really great, though. They're pretty great in terms of the additive process. Okay. All right, let's go and add some of these. I was a little bit more conservative. Well, not too conservative, but a little bit more so in the beginning of the last piece. But then I thought, oh, those pink little dots and blossoms, the blossom highlights like this, really look great when you just use them everywhere. So here's these little blossoms that are reflecting a lot of light. Okay, the more the darker the pink in the background or whatever, the darker the background that you put this pink dot on, it stands out more. Okay. So by and large, I'm trying to keep this on kind of the I'm trying to keep it on the top surfaces of things, okay? So you can see, oh, here we go. Okay, so the tops of those little tufts like that, okay? But I'll show you where it is in the design, too. See the top surfaces right here? There's highlights on there. There's lighter areas. So what I'm doing is I kind of toned in the whole thing, making the whole thing dark, but I'm reiterating now the lighting scheme that I've drawn within these trees right here, the actual design. So where it's light right up top there and darker on the bottom side of that cluster of leaves, you make it lighter on top. Okay. So I've given a lot of different design and lighting tips. Okay, and they're worked within the design themselves. Okay, and you just go in and reiterate that. You color it up. And then when you're going in with a white pen or a lighter pen, in this case, because it's pink and blooming trees, I'm just going in and adding that right back into those designs like that. See how that really stands out like that? So it's not done over the entire thing. It's kind of in the lighter areas of those little trees. So having these little open areas like that create a little bit of contrast. Okay, now what I was talking about before is this looked really good. Just over a lot of different things, so we can put a lot of little fallen, blossoms around in here. I liked it in the water a lot. This, like there's a breeze out, and we can have a lot of these little blossoms, petals. Floating downstream, like that. You can put some up in the air too, like this. I have it on my my rock like this. Sometimes it's not or it's not only the color in the trees, but it's the carpet of a color that the fallen blossoms create. Again, I'm going kind of crazy with this one, but look at this. It's like a river of pink floating down. This is what it looks like more at arm's distance. Okay, let's go with some well, here. Let me go with a white paint pen as well. This is the Miaosun white paint pen, acrylic paint pen. These are like $2 each or something like that. They're so cheap in it of a product that I bought on Amazon. They don't even sell them individually. They typically come in packs of like 5 or 10. This one was like 5 white paint pens and 5 pink white ones. 5 white and 5 black, sorry. And I think it was like, I don't know, it was under $10. And there's like a ton of them too. I have a feeling they're all made by the same place with a different label on it. A different brand name. Okay, so I'm adding these into these trees right here. And I can add it down on the water as well. Yeah, you can have some splashing areas around my waterfall too. And going a little bit crazy here, kind of in the water. I don't know, but those trees really come alive, don't they? Oh, and I mean, if you want to use this, I can do little highlights on some of my rocks. It's just kind of like putting a little dot here and there, but on the rocks too, even in the most minute little areas, I've tried to change the values of those rocks and having light and dark over certain little areas. And well, on your bridge, if you want to, like on some of these stones, on the top surfaces of some of them, you can kind of give them a little bit more dimension. And some maybe if you've left a couple little bit of lighter ones, like that. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it creates a little bit more dimension in terms of individual objects within that space. Okay, so here is just your cotton ball and white pigment ink. This one's Hero Hues one. Okay. I've left this area light in here, so that's where I'm going to start. Okay. Start in this lighter area. I'm dabbing in like this and blotting it off because I don't want a big blob of paint being applied. I just want a very light version of it to represent kind of this fog and mist or whatnot. It could be created by the churning waters right here of the waterfall. Try to keep some variation in there. So I don't want to just cover everything up equally, okay? So you can see it coming out from that space right there. And remember how I've kind of left some of this, these objects I wiped off the bottom of the stamps before I stamped them out. That's for the benefit of this process right here. I'm kind of adding this tone in right here, and see how this is the kind of fog at the base of it, like that. Kind of creates a little bit of a glow, doesn't it? But see, if I stamp this out darker, then I would just have to use more white pigment ink to make it lighter. So I just make it inherently lighter in the impression. I don't have to worry, I don't have to do so much work now when it comes to adding this in there. So it's a little bit of planning ahead. Okay? I didn't used to do that at all, but I don't know. After 20 years or so, I kind of figured out, just kind of wipe off some ink, so you don't have to do so much in the end. Okay, let's bring some of this little bit of foggy type of spirit up into here. And this is where I was talking about how, like, dark black or something like that, hitting some shadows kind of brings things together and gives the scene unity and completion, kind of a more complete type of feel, okay? And the white pigment ink, so I added that darker area in black for the shadows and whatnot, and now I'm adding light for the light and atmosphere of it all. I'm going to try to add quite a bit of it right here. And I do so because it's going to dry and it's going to look much darker than that. But there you have it, in terms of, the final piece. I'll keep things fairly simple. I had some overhanging tree limbs in the previous one. And this is pretty dark up here, so I can't do this. But I was thinking maybe what I should have done was I should have had some of these leaves and whatnot pink, making it look like the blossoms. Or I could intersperse some pink within this overhanging tree limb to make it look like it's the same type of tree that's blooming in the background. I thought that would have been cool. I didn't think about it until I was done, though. So I can really do that. Okay, so let's do this in a couple of colors. I'll do it. Hell no. There's really not very much space up here on this card, so let's just do it in Versafine Black. I was going to do it in multi-tone, maybe in a green, and black, but let's just do it in black. Let's just keep things nice and simple for this one. Simple in terms of a, reasonably layered deep space card. Now, this took a lot less time because it's half the size, but I knew when I was doing this what the unifying types of things would be. Like, I kept experimenting around with a lot of different colors in the first one too. So I kept things fairly simple because I realized in the end, it didn't really matter too much, with the colors, because once you run the black in there, it's fine. Something like this, I find I tweaked it a little bit with the lighter green to make things, a little bit brighter in there. Look at those trees. So just keeping things simple with that, not going too complex with my depth within that foreground area. And I think I could use something down here too. Let's go with the reeds. I mean, I could layer that twisting leaves in there again. Like this. There's enough space for it. And maybe let's try it here. Let me just go for green here. Okay. Kind of adds a nice whimsical element to the piece. Okay, so there it is, and it's a bottle green. It's fairly dark. Okay. And then let's take that same reed stamp that I used in the previous scene version, and let's go with black. Be careful with that Versafine. It's really slippery. It's an oil-based pigment ink, and it's really dark, and the ink is reasonably thick. Okay. So there we have it. I don't think I stopped this video. This is 47 minutes. This one took me 2 hours, okay? Because I was just trying to feel my way through it, okay? But pretty similar, though. I don't know, maybe you like the smaller one, a more simplified version of it. See, this is what I was talking about in terms of the depth there. And there's the same type of thing there. So not too bad. I mean, one of the things that was sacrificed in this one, just in terms of a lot more space is that background hill in there. Okay. But same type of spirit there, so just much less time right there. So a lot less colors used in this one than in this one, believe it or not, too. Okay, see that pink right there, how much more intense it is than this one? When I spray this one, the intensity will come back to something bright like this one, but I haven't, I'll spray this when I get around to it. All right, so anyway, quicker version of this scene. I hope you enjoyed it, and some people picked up some of these stamps, based on this scene right here, this composition. So if you do it, I hope you enjoy it, and you can kind of stamp along with me in this video. And if you have any questions, drop me a note, or if you run into any kind of difficulties at all, or you don't like what you see in the end result, send me an email with an attachment, and I'll take a look at it. Oftentimes, here's what it is. Oftentimes it's a little bit more shading within that space, and for me, the thing that really brings things together is the use of that white pigment ink in there, and just adding all that kind of that foggy layering. If anything doesn't come together really well, I just put a little bit of fog over at the top of it, and it looks like it's much farther back in the distance. And it also has that kind of unifying type of aspect to having a similar texture running over things. It's kind of a soft texture, right? And then that contrasts really nicely against the foreground in here. Okay, but anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning into the Stampscapes channel. If you like this video, hope you give us a like. Okay, thanks.